the Lord. I am Lucy Wawero, welcoming you to our first Pcea Virtual Evangelism Summit, and we are glad that you are here. The theme of this summit is Equipping for Evangelism, where each session will give you tools and insights to help you share the love of Christ wherever you are, be it in your family, your office, your community, and even in your social media platforms, wherever the Lord has placed you. You're expected to share the love of Christ. And all these sessions, it's good to know that they will be available on Facebook, and that is Pcea Missions Online. Also on YouTube, Pcea Missions Online, as well as CAC TV. Now we have 3 sessions lined up for you. A morning session, a lunch hour session, as well as an evening session. Across the world, people have felt isolated, desperate, and uncertain of the future. And especially during the months where we have had this COVID pandemic and where we have had restrictions, we have seen and read of countless stories of people dying alone, unable to see their loved ones because of the restrictions. People have lost jobs. People are struggling economically. All of these things have impacted people's mental health. Suicide and domestic violence rates have also risen. This session will discuss the various impacts that COVID-19 pandemic has had on mental health, and will offer some tools to deal with these issues. So kindly help me and join me in welcoming Mr. Moffat Kago, who comes to us from Park University. He is a psychologist and family therapist, and he will help us through this session. Karibu sana.
Thank you very much, dear viewers. My name is Moffat Kago. I am popularly known as Moffat Mushauri. I am born again. I love the Lord as my Lord and personal Savior. On top of that, I am a marriage and family counselor and a family therapist by profession. Now, this morning, I have been requested to speak about a very important subject. The topic of mental health, or how people have been affected mentally, psychologically, emotionally by COVID-19. And I am sure you will agree with me that people have gone through a lot of challenges. People have been affected. Children have been affected. Parents have gone through, sacking at their places of work. Businesses have collapsed. Economically, people are not doing well. And then, as if that is not enough, this issue of COVID-19 has made people to be grounded in their homes. And this has affected families and a society at large, has affected the family and the society at large at a very in a very great way. Now, I started thinking about this subject of mental illness. And we normally say, mental illness, to a very large extent, it is not in the genetic realm. In as much as mental illness can follow the thread of a family, to a very large extent we say that mental illness is in the social realm. That tells you that whatever you are going through, to a very large extent, it is because of some factors that are happening around you. And the issue of COVID-19 is something that is happening in the social realm, in that relationships have been affected because of the way people have been locked down, because of the way people have been forced to go through some turbulent moments against their wish. They have been affected. Children have seen their parents suffering, and they begin to suffer from what we call vicarious trauma. their parents have been affected, and the children have also gone through this particular challenge. Now, the question is, what do we do? What do we do when such a thing strikes our family? Now, I want to lay the foundation of this topic on the Bible. And I started asking myself, how old is mental illness? And it is amazing that mental illness, just like any other challenge that men come across, or families and society comes across, mental illness is as old as man. And it is very interesting that even in the Bible, we see some biblical characters right from the Old Testament. We see people who went through mental challenges. They felt overwhelmed, because we can define mental illness or depression or any other thing that affects our mind as an experience, as an overwhelming experience of hopelessness. And therefore, people have gone through hopelessness because of what has come as a result of COVID-19. And it is so amazing that when you look at the Bible, you see some biblical characters, even in the Old Testament, people like Elijah, people like Moses, people like Jonah. They went through such turbulent moments. And therefore, just as the Bible says that there is no temptation that comes to man except that which is common to every man. And therefore, I want us to know that even what we are going through as a result of COVID-19, it is not something that is not common to man. In fact, if you read history, you will realize that some years back, we did have what they called Spanish flu, and it affected people. Families were ravaged, and people went through a difficult moment. Now, if the Bible itself has recorded about people who went through mental challenges, even Christ himself, as we are going to see, went through some of these moments. Who are we? We are just mere human beings. And I can tell you for a fact, nothing comes to a man except that which is common to every man. And therefore, we really need to encourage ourselves this morning and to understand that our God is able to understand what we are going through. Now, it reached a point, and a very interesting character in the Bible by the name Jonah reached a point and he told God to kill him because of what he had gone through. He became suicidal. Look at Elijah. He also told God to kill him. He became suicidal because of being threatened with death by King Ahab and Jezebel. And even after having seen what God had done for him, what God had done for Israel, eliminating the prophets of Baal, when Jezebel and Ahab issued this life-threatening threat, he ran away and he became suicidal. And he told God to take his life. And I know there are many people who can identify with such a person. There are many people who are going through turbulent moments. Jobs have been terminated. People have been retrenched from their places of work. Businesses have collapsed. And a lot of social relationships have been affected. Like now, for instance, I know just like myself, you are aware that we are going through a challenging moment whereby every now and then you are being enlisted in a WhatsApp group that is taking care of a family that maybe has lost a loved one. And people have given and contributed to a point that you even fear to be enlisted in any new WhatsApp group, if you are like me. And therefore, this is not a very new challenge. It is a challenge that is as old as men. The only difference is that this has taken a shape of a disease. But it is not new. I want us to read the book of Mark, chapter 14, and verse 32. And this is about Jesus, and I will be demonstrating to us how Jesus was different from Moses, was different from Elijah, was different from Jonah, and all those other patriarchs in terms of dealing with mental anguish, in terms of dealing with hopelessness, he was very different. And I want us to agree that in as much as Jesus was God, there was also the human aspect of him. There was also the human element of him. And verse 32 says that then they went to a place called Gethsemane, and he said to his disciples, "Sit down here while I pray." And he took with him Peter, John, and James, and began to be struck with terror and amazement, and deeply troubled and depressed. I want you to underline that word, depressed. He began to be struck with terror. He began to be struck with trouble and depression. Then verse 34, and I like it, and he said to them, "My soul is exceedingly sad. I am overwhelmed with grief, so that it almost kills me. Remain here and keep awake and be watching." And then when you read the book of Psalm 11 verse 3, it says, if the foundations are destroyed, what can the righteous do? Now, my dear viewers, I know you will agree with me that our foundations have been shaken. What we previously thought that these are the issues, or this is the kind of job that is going to give me joy, it is going to give me satisfaction, it is going to provide for my family, it has been shaken. Everything is shaking. Jobs are shaking. Marriages are shaking. Relationships are shaking. The church has also been shaken, because I don't know whether there has been another time in history where pastors have felt overwhelmed because of burying their church members, dying out of COVID, dealing with the issues of loss and grief. Some moments not even knowing what to tell the families, where they are going to, that they are going to condole with. They are going to bury their members. And I am sure even the men of God, sometimes even looking at a phone call, you do not want even to take it, because you don't know the kind of message it is going to deliver to you. Foundations have been shaken. And when the foundations have been shaken, what do the righteous do? What will the righteous do? Now, when you look at what we have read in the book of Mark, Jesus has demonstrated to us, or has painted a very interesting picture, that a time came and he was overtaken with grief. And he did not know, or rather, unlike the patriarchs that we have mentioned, Jesus carried with himself Peter, John, and James. And for a moment, we can look at the social aspect of Jesus, that he was always accompanied by people. And this is so interesting, that when it reached a point and he was feeling overwhelmed with grief, even to a point of death, and he says that I am deeply moved, I am depressed. He is telling his disciples, and this is very interesting, because from the 12 of his disciples, Jesus had taken 3 disciples to whom he could speak out his mind, to whom he could speak out his heart, to whom he could speak out his thoughts. And this makes the whole difference between him and Elijah, between him and Moses, between him and Jonah, because these guys were lone rangers. They were all alone, even in the desert. Even when they were feeling overwhelmed with grief, even when they were feeling suicidal, they did not have anybody to whom they could express their feelings, to whom they could tell what is going on in their minds. And Jesus has painted, or has brought to us, a very, very important and unique model of speaking out. When the foundations have been shaken, are we able to speak out? When we are feeling overwhelmed with grief, are we able to speak out? Jesus has demonstrated to us that even in his social space, even amongst his disciples, he had taken 3 of them with whom he felt comfortable, to whom he could be vulnerable, to whom he could tell what is going on in his mind. And this is very, very interesting. And we can take a point or two from what Jesus himself is teaching us. That even in the midst of this COVID-19, even in the midst of us being ravaged by it, our families being taken, affected. Brothers and sisters have succumbed to the disease. Our jobs have gone down. Those of you who probably are doing or used to do importation. I was talking to somebody and he was telling me how he has lost goods worth millions and millions of shillings. They got held up. A lot of complications came as a result of what we are going through as a society and as a globe in general. Now, therefore, we need to teach ourselves something, that it is important for us to speak out. It is important for us in our social circles to pick 1 or 2, 3 people to whom we can speak to whom we can be vulnerable to. Let me speak to men for a moment. I know to a very large extent you drive this economy. And I know your jobs have been terminated, your businesses have come crumbling down, and sometimes you do not know what to do. And then, as if that is not enough, it is being coupled with I normally say that in Africa, we are uniquely disadvantaged as men. And why do I say this? Because we do not know how to express our negative feelings. In any case, we have been made to believe that men do not grieve, that men do not feel. And as a result, I keep saying that one of the 10 commandments of men is that thou shalt not feel. In other words, you shouldn't express your negative feeling. You shouldn't show that indeed you are feeling whatever you are going through. And I want to challenge us. Jesus, in the scripture that we have just read, being a man, he agreed to be vulnerable to other men or to somebody else. And he allowed himself to speak out. And it was at that point, after expressing what he was going through, he could invite his friends, Peter, John, and James, to help him in praying. Some of us, we are dying because we do not have people who can stand with us in prayer, because we do not have people to whom we can express our internal pain. It is locked up in us. And as a result, if you cannot express, if you cannot vent out what you are going through, chances are that you are going to erupt. You are going to erupt, and you are going to do some crazy things, as we are seeing even in the news headlines. A man waking up one morning and eliminating his family, entire family, killing their wives, and doing some other crazy things, committing suicide, because we cannot be able to express our inner pain. And I want to educate you a little more, fellow men. There's something that psychology calls normative male alexithymia. And normative male alexithymia is when a man is unable to express or to put into words his internal feelings. And what happens? You just lock up your emotions. And if you cannot express what you are saying, the only remaining language is what I would call unhealthy ways of coping. This is the point at which you find a man who never used to drink, somebody who was a believer, can start drinking, can start doing some other funny things. These are unhealthy ways of coping. And I want to teach us something small. There's something I call frustration circle. Frustration circle, it is important for us to agree. And it goes without saying that there is no human being who can never be frustrated in this life. Not even one. This life is about being frustrated. And I know we are dealing with some other very funny doctrines. whereby we have had preachers come to us and telling us, thou shalt not suffer. As a matter of fact, I have seen a church that has written on its billboard, stop suffering. And I want to bring to us very sad news to us, that as long as we are in this life, we cannot run away from frustrations. Frustrations are part and parcel of this life. And this is the reason why some people, when they are faced with the frustrations, like the ones we are having today, they are not able to deal with it because it is in conflict with their ideal world, the ideal world which has been created by their belief system, where they go to church, stop suffering. Every now and then, they are going for deliverance, that, you are not supposed to be like this. And everything has been given some demonic connotation. And I want to challenge us that this is not the case. If you are going through trials, it is not because you have sinned. In fact, I am reminded when the disciples asked Jesus, because of this man who had been born with a certain disease, and they were asking him, who sinned? Who has sinned? Is it this man? Is it his parent? Or who has sinned to God? And I love the answer that Jesus gave his disciples, that not his parents, not even himself, but his disease is so that the name of God can be glorified. There are some situations that we go through so that the name of God can be exalted. And this particular pandemic, I want to believe, we are going through it so that at the end of it all, the name of God can be glorified. And therefore, I want to tell us that frustration, we can never run away from frustration. Now, what happens first when frustrations come inside of us, like the frustrations we have experienced as a result of COVID-19? The first thing that you will do as a human being, as a natural human being, is that you will want to change that particular situation. And this frustration circle has got 3 doors. And the first door is the door that we call the door of change. This is the point at which, when you are frustrated, you want to change that particular situation. You want to, that door, you want to change it. You want to change that particular frustration that you are going through. But I have a question for us. Is it every situation in this life that we have the power to change? And the answer is a resounding no. Not every situation you are able to change. Like, for instance, somebody has passed on. Are you able to reverse that situation? The answer is no. When somebody dies, it's the close of the chapter. But there are some people who are not able to accept this change. They still want to fight to open that door which has already closed. The door of change. It has already closed. All right? Or if it has opened, if, for instance, it is the door of death and it has opened its doors, you are not able to close that door. And therefore, it has got nothing to do with you. This is something that is beyond you. Now, there are some people who keep on fighting and they cannot accept that this business has been closed down. My family member has passed away. My spouse, my husband, my wife, my child has passed away. We are not able to accept that. What happens next? You move down. Frustration is still looking for an exit door. And the next door is the door that we call the door of accepting the futilities of life. The door of accepting the futilities of life. Let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, if we are not able to accept the futilities of life, it goes without saying that we are going to succumb to our situations. Now, this door of accepting the futilities of life, we should always make sure that we have it open. It is the kind of a door that should always remain open, so that when frustration comes inside you, when frustrations engulf you, you look at that situation and you tell yourself, okay, this one I'm not able to change. Or this one I am able to change. If you are able to change, well and good. We praise God for that. But if you are not able to change, you allow the frustrations to flow out through this door we are calling the door of embracing the futilities of life. And this is the door through which you are able to utter these words, like Job. Job, after going through some situations in his life, after his children dying, after him being affected and he got a disease, and even after the wife telling him to curse God and they die, Job was a man who had learned the art of embracing the futilities of life. And he told God, Lord, naked I came in this world, and naked shall I return. Your name be praised. These are men and women who have been able to learn the art of embracing the futilities of life, because not every situation you are able to change. Now, if you close that door, because people who are fighting to open the door which has already closed, the door of change, these are people who will try to close even this door which would naturally remain open, the door of accepting the futilities of life. And the moment you close that door, the only remaining door is the door that we call the door of aggression, the door of fight. The door of aggression, it is the door through which a person starts drinking. Somebody who was not drinking initially, they start drinking. And this is the door that I call the door of unhealthy ways of coping. The door of unhealthy ways of coping. This is the door whereby somebody will start drinking, because we normally say that when you see somebody drinking and even drinking excessively, this is a person who is having some underlying issues, because drinking becomes just a symptom of something that is unspoken. Remember normative alexithymia? Something unspoken. You have fallen short of language to express what you are feeling. And therefore, you can only speak through other unhealthy ways. Drinking being one of it, because there's somebody who is drinking. And instead of bashing these people, instead of judging them, wives, instead of bashing your husband, encourage dialogue. Create an atmosphere of love and caring. Create an atmosphere of unconditional positive regard. Don't look at the drinking only. Go deeper. Try to find out, what is it, my husband, that is ailing you? Husbands, the same way. I'm not saying that it is only men who get affected, even our wives, even our daughters. Let us encourage the atmosphere of communication in that family so that they can tell us what it is, because we are only seeing their symptoms. We are not able to see the underlying issues. And you are not able to see the underlying issues unless you create an atmosphere of love and caring. The other thing that happens during in this door of aggression and fight is depression. People begin to sink in depression, and they begin to have some issues. And you know, depression, if we could define depression in a minute, depression means it is an overwhelming feeling of hopelessness, an overwhelming feeling of defeat, an overwhelming feeling of hopelessness. In other words, this person feels as if there is not going to be any solution to their problems. And it is at this point when somebody will even commit suicide. Suicide, people do not commit suicide because they want to die. People commit suicide as a way of coping. And that is why we are calling it an unhealthy way of coping. They are running away from an overwhelming pain. And they feel, because depression impairs our judgment. Depression impairs our thinking. And it is at this point when I want to implore on you, dear families, that you really need to understand people who are going through depression or mental illness. These are people whose objectivity has been impaired. These are people whose thought process is impaired. Judgment is impaired. And therefore, we cannot afford to judge them. We cannot afford to bash them. We cannot afford to condemn them, because these are not people in their right state of mind. As a matter of fact, I keep saying, there is nobody in his or her state of, his or her right state of mind who can commit suicide. It can't happen. When you see somebody taking a rope and killing himself, taking a gun and shooting himself or herself, these are people who have reached their end. Judgment impaired, thought process impaired. We really need to try and put ourselves in their subjective lenses, in their shoes, so that they can be inviting. And when they invite us to listen to them, we are able to help them. We are able to call help for them. We are able to talk to them in a manner that is not going to make them feel judged. Because somebody who is going through depression, more often than not, they feel that the whole world does not understand them. They feel that people do not care for them. And you know, all these are impaired ways of reasoning. And we need to understand that so that we can know how to go about it. And therefore, as I come, as I near the close of this presentation, I want us to know that God understands. He understands. He has gone through this. And like we have seen, we don't have to die because of our challenges. Mental health is a disease. A mental illness is a disease like any other. It is only that it affects our minds. It affects the engine that drives every other part of our bodies. Therefore, when somebody begins to behave in a strange manner, we need to understand them. We need to call for help for them. We need to connect them with counselors. We need to connect families with the people who can help them, professionals. And most importantly, we need to avail ourselves so that we can speak to these people without judging them. Because our families should be our safe haven. This is the place where somebody needs to run and they are helped. But unfortunately, what are we doing? We are making life in our families very toxic. That a man is coming from his work, he is beaten, he is feeling low, and when he comes home, he is not receiving somebody who is, he is not being received warmly. The home environment is not inviting. And the same case happens to our wives. They are coming home beaten, but they are not able to find a man who is inviting, who is able to help them numb or rather dress their wounds. And therefore, we really need to know that we all have a role to play so that we can deal with this issue which has come as a result of COVID-19. I know some of us are working from home. And when you are working from home, you have been made to just sit down there. Your wife is seated down there. And you are not used to this life of being together every morning. You feel stressed. You have talked. You have ran out of materials to talk about. And you start now seeing the weaknesses of the other person. You start now judging each other. You start having issues. And I want to end by saying this, that marriage is a journey of being revealed. It is a journey of being revealed. So, and when we are being revealed, it is normally very uncomfortable to us when we are being revealed. But I want to encourage us that we need to allow our spouses to reveal us during this COVID season, when we are working from home, when we are with our children more than ever before. We need to allow them to, to allow ourselves to be revealed, because we can only be revealed by others. That's why we say that marriage is a mystery. They start telling you something that they do not like about you, because they have been with you during this COVID season, and they are able to know A, B, C, D about you. Maybe many times you are on phone, they begin to express their discomfort because of the way we are on our mobile phones. We are being revealed. And when we are being revealed, we should be positive about it. We should be positive about it. Even Jesus himself once asked his disciples, who do people say that I am? You know? And then the disciples said, some say you are Elijah, some say that you are one of the ancient prophets. Then he asked them, and whom do you say that I am? And, this is a very critical question. We really need to find out, even from other people, whom they think we are. Okay? This is very, very interesting. There's something psychology calls Johari Window. There's a window whereby people know something about you and you don't know. There's another window whereby you know stuff about yourself and others do not know. And we really need to take time to understand even from others. This is why God created coexistence. When your wife, when your colleague at work tell you that you are highly irritable, that you are hot-tempered, you are being revealed. It is important for us to know that this is not a moment for us to fight people who are revealing to us who we are. I want to take this moment to thank you for taking time to listen to me, and also the leadership of CAC TV for inviting me. I really want to thank you, even you viewers, for taking time to listen and to be blessed and to hear what God is telling his people, even during these latter days. So therefore, thank you very much, and the Lord bless you. I appreciate for being with you. Asanteni sana.